Okay. Good. What is it? It's Monday. Good Monday, everybody. I've had strep throats. I've been a little bit out. Everything's a little bit off, but I'm on antibiotics. I've never felt better. Drugs, miracles. We will talk a few things. I always change it up, the weekly roundup. Either it's purely Chumash, on the Parsha, or it's a lot of Tanya. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit. First thing I want to talk about is the upcoming Tisha B'Av. Yeah, the 9th day of Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar. And we'll talk about what happened on the day, some basic customs, just spend 2 minutes on it. Then I'm going to move on to the Rambam. Now, I switched from 3 chapters a day to 1 chapter a day because I wasn't learning, right? There's a cycle, Rambam, daily cycle. You have Sefer HaMitzvot. If you don't know about it, I'll tell you about it after. You could do 1 chapter a day or 3 chapters a day. If you do 3 chapters a day, you'll conclude it in a single year. So I've been doing that for a while, but I spoke with my my mentor, my mashpia, and I said I want to learn it more in depth, and I just don't have time to do 3 chapters a day in depth. So, as of 2 days ago, I've been doing 1. I switched back to 1 chapter a day. So that's what we're going to talk about, and we'll speak briefly about the parsha. Okay, so Tisha B'Av is coming up, which is what? It's Wednesday night, Thursday. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's Wednesday night, Thursday, 26th. Yeah. So what happened on Tisha B'Av? In the year of 1313 BCE, that's when the spies came back with a negative report, all except for 2, Joshua and Caleb. They came back with a positive report, and those 2, Joshua and Caleb, got to go into the land of Israel. So the Jewish people decided not to enter the land of Israel. That was a major calamity. They realized that was a big mistake. That's one thing negative that happened. Now, as I always explain, time in Judaism, I know you've heard me say this 1,000 times, is not linear, meaning what happened in the past stays in the past. Time works as a spiral. So you move away from the event in terms of years, but you realign with that energy every year. So the fact that a lot of negative things happen on the 9th day of which we're the month that we're in, shows that it's something very, we were very careful on that day. And we're very careful during these particular 9 days, but especially on that day. So the year 1313, the spies came back with a very negative report. Both 2 temples were destroyed on Tisha B'Av. The first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians in 433 BCE or so, 400 BCE. And then the second one was destroyed in 63, 69 BC by the Romans. And that's the Galus we're in. If you ever look at the Talmud, the exile that we're in is called Galut Romi. It's called the Galus of Rome, and that we live in a very Roman time. The Romans actually gave us there's a lot of positivity that came from the Romans. We still do it today, but they worshipped a little bit too much of the body and fashion, which we all get stuck in nowadays, which we'll speak about in a moment, why that's so significant. There was the Bar Kokhba revolt in the year 100 CE, so like about 50 years after the Romans completely destroyed the temple. We tried to fight back. They got really mad, and led by Bar Kokhba, who was believed to be Mashiach, by even Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva believed him. Everybody thought he was Mashiach, Bar Kokhba. That's how we know all the laws of Mashiach, by the way. How to identify Mashiach is by identifying who Bar Kokhba was. What was his lineage? What did he do? Did he actually rebuild the temple? No. Did he actually... all the things the Rambam lists out that Mashiach needs to do in order to qualify as Mashiach, he didn't exactly do, but nevertheless, he was considered a Mashiach. So we learn that just someone could be Mashiach without actually having done them just yet. So Bar Kokhba was killed, which led to the big massacre in Beitar, where blood flowed for a year, and we couldn't bury the dead, 10 years. And then we came back, and it was a big miracle. All the bodies were preserved, and we were able to bury them properly. A lot more calamities happened on the Tisha B'Av. One of the big trains to Auschwitz happened on that day. The Inquisition began on Tisha B'Av. So it's a day of sadness, but it's a day of outward sadness. Inside, you always remain joyful. It's important. It's actually integral to be a Jew and to perform things properly. So outwardly, there's things that we don't do. Namely, I will name them for you. We do not eat or drink starting from the 8th day of Av. So starting Wednesday, about an hour and a quarter before nightfall. I have to double check that. It's an hour and a quarter. We don't eat. We have a little meal. We have some bread and some eggs, and then we don't eat. It's a 25-hour fast. It's a long fast if you live in the northern hemisphere. We don't wear leather shoes. We don't bathe or wash. There, I have it over here. We don't, no ointments or creams, no marital relations. We don't sit on a chair that's above, really, you try to sit on a chair that's below 12 inches, 15 inches, because it's that's a state of mourning. We don't learn Torah. The only Torah that we learn are things that are pertinent to Tisha B'Av itself, what the day is about, meaning the laws or the story. You can do that. We don't greet somebody unless they greet you first, and you can respond to them. We don't give gifts. We don't wear festive clothing. We don't take part in pleasurable activities. Now, we do learn Torah and everything like that. Oh, one of the big thing that we don't do for men, we don't wear talis and tefillin until after midday. So you're going to daven Shachris in the morning prayer, but you don't wear talis and tefillin. No, you don't wear talis? Yeah, I don't think you wear talis. You don't wear a talis, which is kind of interesting. Okay. Let me go on a little bit more. We read the Megillah Eicha, which talks about the destruction of the temple. It's pretty intense. It has a beautiful tune to it. It's actually my favorite. It's very nice. You might remember that tune featured in the Megillah, Esther, sometimes. Now, what else don't we do? At night, once the fast is over, we wash our hands, we put on leather shoes, we daven Mariv in leather shoes after we wash our hands. If you can do Kiddush Levana, we do Kiddush Levana. And we actually don't eat meat or drink wine, though, until the next day, midday. We still push it off for a little bit. But you can listen to music right away, if you'd like. Okay, that's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions? Rabbi Silverberg is going to give a little bit more of a class on it. I think he already has. Anybody have any questions? I can barely hear. It's so loud in here. Guys, if you ever are in a base medrash learning Torah, it's not a library. It's very loud. When we learn very loud. Okay, now I want to move on. Which bracha, let me ask you guys a question. Which bracha, which blessing do we make over chicken cutlets, schnitzel? Does anybody know?
Shahakol.
You make a shahakol. Okay, does anybody disagree? Okay, that's funny that you said that.
Yeah. I see where you're going with this.
So, okay, fine, shahakol. I'll tell you I say shahakol. But I think we're in the minority. Does anybody else know what you might say? So if you go to Israel and you order schnitzel, which is breaded chicken, mizonot. Yeah, people make a mizonot. Most people, which I did not find out until like 3 years ago that people made mizonot. I was taught you make shahakol. And what's the reason why someone would make shahakol or mizonot? I'll give you the answer. There's something the Rambam speaks about. There's the 5 grains of Israel. Now, whenever you cook with the oats, wheat, barley, spelt, rye, oats, wheat, barley, rye, and spelt. So if you cook with any one of those ingredients with water, it has its own category of blessings. So if it looks like bread, you make hamotzi. If it's very chewy, or it doesn't look like bread, you make mizonot. Borei minei mizonot. If it looks liquidy, you make a shahakol. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. Let me just tell you parenthetically, these are called the laws of birchas hane'enin, the laws of food, the laws of pleasure. They are the most complicated laws in all of Torah. Now, let me just close parentheses. Now, what happens? There's another thing you should know. What if I have there's an order of blessings. So if you have wine in front of you, and you have a piece of cake in front of you, and you have a carrot in front of you, the first thing you make a blessing on is the wine. It's considered more chashuv, more important. The next thing you make a bracha on is the mizonot. That's considered the second most important. And then you eat the carrot. Okay, that's important to know. Okay, so now let's tie it all back in. When it comes to schnitzel, and this is basically sums up the entire Rambam chapter, in my opinion. The thing about, there's breadcrumbs and there's the chicken. Bread always takes precedence over chicken unless the bread is there to serve the chicken or the other something else. So the example the Rambam gives, if somebody has very salty fish that's like in brine and it's very hard to swallow, the Rambam says the Gemara says, take a little bit of bread with it, and you can eat it, so it'll help it go down. And you do not need to make a hamotzi on that piece of bread, even though it's just because the bread is not what you really want. What you really want is the fish. You just need this. The bread is serving the fish. In the case of the schnitzel, the breadcrumbs can be, the argument is, I really just want the chicken, but the breadcrumbs hold the chicken together. So some people will say, no, the bread is like what makes the chicken, the crunch, the taste, and therefore that's the bari minim is you need to make a mezonot on the chicken because it's really about the breadcrumbs. And I learned, and I agree that the breadcrumbs really merely just serve the chicken. It's just there so the chicken doesn't fall apart, and therefore we make a shahakol. It's a little bit complicated, I know, but that sums up about the birkat the schnitzel. Okay, anybody have any questions? That should prompt a lot of questions, but it's okay if you don't have any questions. Okay, we can learn more about that at a different time. I can tell you Rabbi Schneer makes a mizonot. I was shocked to find out that he did that. That's actually how I found out people make mizonot on schnitzel. I had never seen that before. Okay, here we go. Parshas Ve'eschanan. Moses opens up. This is one of the last 30 days of Moses' life. He is giving petch. He's giving blessings and curses or admonishment to the Jewish people. And what he opens up the parsha speaking about, he just took care of the war with the Midianites, and this is what God wanted. And he thought he found favor in the eyes of God, and he asked God one more time, 512 times, can I go in the land of Israel? And finally, God says to him, no. I know you're trying hard and you're working really well, and but you cannot go into the land of Israel. The Gemara asks, why did Moses, the choice was either this. He was either going to go to Gan Eden, heaven, or he was going to go to the land of Israel. Why did he want to go to the land of Israel over heaven? He was going to reach the highest levels of heaven. In fact, the Gemara says it actually in the Mishnah, that one moment of Gan Eden is greater than all of the pleasure in this world. So one moment in Gan Eden, in heaven, is better than all the pleasure that you can experience 120 years in this physical world. However, the Mishnah then continues and says, but one moment of teshuva, and ma'asim tovim in this world is greater than all the moments of Gan Eden. What's the reconciliation? What are we talking about over here? So what Gan Eden is all about, what heaven is all about, is the revelation of everything you did in this world. You experience it tangibly. Now, there's no physical sensation, right? We don't believe in that. You're a soul. But what you're accomplishing spiritually is happening. And that's why we don't see what we're doing in this world, because we see everything through our physical eyes. We can't see, we're not spiritually sensitive. However, the truth is, so when you get to Gan Eden, you're going to experience that. However, the truth is, when you get to, in this world, when you do a mitzvah, you're actually expressing God's essence. Even though you don't feel it and you don't sense it, and that's called gullus, that's called exile. Yeah, the inability to really feel and experience the true reality. But however, it's taking place, and Moses knew that, and Moses knew there were mitzvahs that were connected to the land of Israel that he never were able to accomplish and never able to express, like Shemitah and letting the land lay fallow, and Truma and Meiser and all these different things, all these different special mitzvahs that are connected to the land of Israel. Nowhere else, he wanted to experience that. But God said no. On a more spiritual level, and from a Hasidic level, Moses, the problem, there's a dichotomy, like a contradiction. There's a what's it called? Like not an oxymoron, but there's like a contradiction, something very interesting. The further we moved away from the experience of the giving of the Torah, we were spiritually declining. So from the moment, the highest level that the Jewish people ever were spiritually was at the giving of the Torah. And that generation is called the Dordeya, the generation that knew God, that saw God. We openly saw God. And as the generations move further down, spiritually, we have less spiritual stature until we get to the generation we're in now, which is referred to in the Gemara as the Ikvus of the Mashiach. We're like the heel, the least sensitive part of the body. However, what happens at the same time is that Torah scholarship and the relationship with God becomes more real. So even though you're spiritually less sensitive and you don't see God, the connection to God is actually felt, is much more precious in God's eyes, and it's much more prevalent. For instance, as I've said many times, Torah scholarship, the amount of people learning Torah nowadays is more than all of our Jewish history combined. Meaning the percentage of Jews, the accessibility of Torah is unprecedented than what it is now. In fact, we're even more religious now than we were back then. I don't know if you guys know this. As time moved on, we became more and more religious, so to speak. In other words, there's more halachot, there's more laws. The laws, our kitchens are much more kosher than they were 400 years ago, 300 years ago. The Arizal's kitchen compared to our kitchen is, a regular kosher kitchen, is actually is a much higher standard. We'll ask Rabbi Silfen.
Thanks to the Rebbe.
What?
Thanks to the Rebbe.
Thanks to the Rebbe? Well, of the spreading of Torah. Well, not just
the Rebbe.
The Rebbe, yeah.
I think so.
What?
Yeah, the spreading of the Torah.
The spreading of the Torah. Well, yeah, that's for sure. But in general, it's just the way God set it up. Because we always are like moving around, and more manuscripts get written, and more Torah just becomes accessible. I mean, even when the Guggenheim Press came out in the 1600s, Jews had access to the Chumash. I mean, many Jews in the world, thousands, millions of Jews didn't have access to a basic Chumash, but now they got access to a basic Chumash. Just with technology, things became more accessible. Moses wasn't fit for that next generation. He was on the level of seeing. He saw God. The next generation was called the generation of hearing God. Now, the difference between seeing and hearing is very simple. If I see something, you're never going to be able to prove me or convince me that I saw otherwise, that I didn't see it the right way. The truth is, I have very bad eyesight. You can convince me, but my kids, for example, you're not going to convince them who have good eyesight that what they saw. When you see something, you automatically believe it, and it's almost impossible for me to convince you otherwise. However, when you hear something, I could convince you otherwise. And there's a big advantage to hearing, though, because it requires much more effort. And therefore, the Jewish people, that generation, required effort. Moses wouldn't have been able to give them. God said, I need effort now. The relationship needs to go to it. It needs to mature. And we all know in a mature relationship, it requires two people, right? It requires the other person giving as well, not just one party giving. That's a toxic relationship. The other person just purely taking. You both have to give. And so God wanted now, if Moses came with us, he would have made it too easy. And God said, your place is to stay behind. However, I will let you see the land of Israel, but you will see it from afar. So God, this in this week's Parsha, God takes him up to the mountain, and he looks over he's able to see over the entire land. And that has an effect, which means that ability to be unquestionably connected with God, seeing is believing, like unshakable. When you see something as unshakable, I can't shake it off of you, that you didn't see it. That was planted within the land. Chassidus explains, and so therefore we always remain connected to that ability, to that level. However, God wanted us to be our relationships to take it to another level until you come to our generation, where it's like almost all of our effort. That's what it feels, and it changes you as a person, and your relationship becomes much more real. It becomes a much more real relationship, almost like a relationship to the extent of a husband and a wife. Like a real. The give and the take and the struggles and the ups and the downs. That's the ultimate. And that's what God ultimately wanted. He wanted a real physical relationship in a sense, just like you have with your own spouse, he wants to have with him. So that happened every generation. That's one of the reasons why that's why Moses had to stay. Moses still wanted to go, but he understood that he shouldn't go. Now, just to talk a little bit about mitzvahs in general, we know that a mitzvah, which is Moses ultimately wanted, he wanted the ability to do more mitzvahs. The word mitzvah comes from the word tzafza, which means connection. He wanted the ability to have a connection with God in a new way. People ask me, whatever, like younger people when they get married. Not that I've been married for so long, I haven't, but they say, what should I prepare for in marriage? Whatever. And I'm like, basically, you can't really prepare. Because part of it is you're going to find things about yourself. You're going to find out things about yourself that you never knew before. Like you thought you were this totally great, normal person, maybe. And now you're going to be put into a new situation, a bunch of new situations, and different parts of you are going to be brought out. There's new sides to you that have never seen the light of day, that never been exercised, never been brought up to the surface, and new challenges are going to bring those out. That's what, and maybe they'll surprise you in a good way, hopefully, but maybe they'll surprise you in a negative way. But that's what Moses wanted. He wanted mitzvahs, as many mitzvahs as he can do, because my relationship with God, it was a different angle relationship with God. It was bringing out a different part of me in my relationship with God, so you can become complete and whole. It's a little bit of a Hasidic interpretation, if you like to know. Moses says in chapter 4, verse 5, pay attention to how I taught you. Pay attention to how I teach you Torah. The Gemara says from here, you have to teach Torah the same way Moses taught Torah, which means he taught it for free. You're not allowed to make money off learning Torah. The same Talmud continues. It says, well, what do you mean? How is a person supposed to make a living if they teach Torah? People need to hear Torah. So, first of all, and also the Gemara says it's not really fair because Moses was very wealthy. How did Moses become wealthy? Moses didn't come out with any nechasim. He didn't come out with any treasures like all the rest of the Jewish people. But when the second luchos came out, when God gave him the second set of tablets, the tablets were made out of sapphire stone. And the shavings, where was the sapphire stone? In fact, where did Moses find the sapphire stone? God said, look under your tent. He dug under his tent and he found the sapphire stone, and God said, carve out the second set of tablets. The shavings of the tablets he sold, and he became a mega millionaire. So he was very wealthy. He was born wealthy. It wasn't really fair. So the Gemara says you can charge money because basically you could be doing another job. So you're paying me as a teacher because I'm giving up an opportunity to make money in another way, a more easier way, a more direct way. So you're paying me for that. So that's the classic Torah explanation of why a teacher can get paid. Let's see over here. Moses very often warns about paganism, idol worship. What is idol worship nowadays? Idol worship is when you worship anything, you idolize anything except for God, which we do all the time. We idolize our body, fashion, money, and even more like ethereal things, more like spiritual things, honor, pleasure for the sake of pleasure, honor for the sake of honor, fashion just to look good for the sake of looking good, not in order to serve God, is called paganism. It becomes much more difficult. Interestingly enough, though, any person, just an interesting story that I want to share. Oh my, it's very late. Just a story that I'd like to share. The Baal Shem Tov says you should always hang around a person who's a spiritual person, a person that believes in God, even if it's not the same religion as you. The Baal Shem Tov had a driver, not Alexei, not the driver that he usually has. He had another driver, a driver before that. And the driver drove past a priest, and the priest had a big cross on himself, and the driver didn't show any honor. And they passed Sunday by a church, and he didn't go out to go into the church. He was a non-Jewish driver. This driver was a non-Jewish driver, obviously. And the Baal Shem Tov got off, and he said, I can't be in this cart because I can't be around anybody who has no spiritual leanings. I can't trust them. I don't care that we don't believe in the same whatever, but if you have no spiritual leaning, I can't trust you. And therefore, that's it. He gave him up as being a driver, even though the guy was a good guy. They said, no, I can't do it. So we always should try to encourage anybody and everybody to be spiritual. You know, it says 90% of Americans see themselves as spiritual, 10% see themselves as religious. I think that's very true. That's a very Jewish line also. Jews are very spiritual, we're not religious. Religious is like a set of laws, do's and don'ts, but it's just like a set of laws of do's and don'ts. Spirituality is a relationship. It's connecting with my trying to connect with my truest self, the truest parts of creation, and trying to be one with everything, you know, in a certain, that's the Jewish approach. Yeah, everybody, for the most part, everyone's, that's why Torah nowadays, Torah and Kabbalah and all these different things are very, I mean, I get inquiries from all over the world all the time. I'm talking from like wherever you can possibly imagine. There's a spiritual yearning, a spiritual awakening, not a religious awakening, but a spiritual awakening. So it's a great time to chap a right. Torah, Moses teaches the Shema Yisrael, which I've spoken about many times. Why did he save it for now? Because it's a mantra. It's the Jewish people's mantra. We say it 5 times a day. Do you guys know that? We say it 5 times a day. We say it twice in the morning. One before prayer of Shachris, one after Shachris, once at Mariv, right before we go to bed. Wait, what are the 5 times we say it? When do I say it? I say it in the morning before prayer. I say it. Oh, I know why. We say it 5 times a day. I say it before prayer, just the first 3 paragraphs, and then I say the entire Shema prayer, and then I say it again in Shachris davening, and then I say it at Mariv, and then I say it right before I go to bed. So you say it 5 times a day. Perhaps that's why Muslims pray 5 times a day. I don't know. Maybe that's one of the places where they took the idea. It's one of the laws we say. It's one of the things. It's the last thing you're supposed to say before you pass away. Before a person passes away, God forbid. You cannot say it lying down. And if you have to lie down, like I was one time in a hospital bed, I was in the ICU, and so the rabbi said, "Turn to your side," because I couldn't get up. So he said, "Turn to your side." You should turn to your side and say the Shema prayer. We don't do it lying down on our back. It's a story in the Gemara. It's a danger to do such a thing. You should never do such a thing. What else could I say? There's a time period that it ends in the morning. It's 3.5 hours after sunrise, and then you have until dawn to say it for the nighttime. Okay, why did God? This is our mantra. Why did Moses say it? Because Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. So the name Adonai is God's higher level of unity. That's God's higher name, the higher level revelation. That was the way God revealed himself in the desert to the Jews in the desert. Pure revelation. Elokeinu is the way God hides himself in nature. Moses is saying, guys, they're the same God. I know it seems like God's gonna completely disappear. He's not. He's working, but he's enclosed within nature. So don't worry about anything. I know you're about to go to war. And it's going to get scary, and you're going to have to work for a living. It's going to be very difficult, but know that it's all the same. But it's a mantra. It says, you should, Vishinantam livanecha v'dibar. Wait, it says, it says, all livavecha. You should put it on your heart. These words of Shema Yisrael and Eloheinu Adonai Echad should be on your heart. Shouldn't it be in your heart? Why on your heart? Because God is saying, I know you can't be emotionally connected to it right away. Just place it. I know it's like a big concept and it's a lifelong process. Just put it on your heart. Just place it on top of your heart. And maybe one day you'll feel a love and a passion for me, and your heart will open up and it'll fall in. And you'll be able to experience it really emotionally, what it means that Shema Yisrael and Eloheinu Adonai Echad. That's just like a nice little thing. The Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso La'olam Va'ed, that second part, Moses overheard angels saying such a thing and he stole it from them. And he incorporated it into the Shema. So we say Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. That Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed is he stole from angels. When do we say this out loud? We say it on Yom Kippur. We say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. We say it out loud. Even though all the rest of the year we quietly say it because we're not angels, and Moses is like, we stole it from them, so don't say it too loud because they might take it back, I guess. I don't know. But on Yom Kippur we say it out loud because we're all like angels. That's why we dress like white. That's why we don't eat. It's a very solemn day. Let's just see. Just moving on to the parsha. Da-da-da-da-da-dun-dun-dun. There's one thing I wanted to say. Well, we say over here, Ata Hares Ladas. You should know today, Ata Hares Ladas, you should know there's no other God besides God. That, and the Chassidus takes it to the next level and said there is actually nothing else besides God. Not that it's all from God. There actually is no reality outside of God. It's just God created this ability for us to think that God created the ego, that we can see ourselves as a separate entity, our own separate entity. But that's not the truth. The truth is you're nothing more, even the ego is nothing more than an extension of God. God is all around us. The Alter Rebbe says, the greatest miracle is not the miracle of the splitting of the sea. It's not the miracle of creation of the world. The greatest miracle is that we can't see God, that God is everything and everywhere and everything, and we still can't see him. That's the greatest miracle. That's the biggest pella, the biggest wonder in all of creation. Okay, anybody have any questions? I know it was a bit of a little loud today. No questions? Oh, I see. I have questions. I apologize. When do we get to listen to music again? Good question. We listen to music. You can listen to music right after Tisha B'Av. What's today? The 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's Thursday night. Thursday night, you can listen to music. So Wednesday afternoon, late afternoon, we begin the fast, and then we end Thursday night. I have to take medicine. I'm on.
So,
Yeah. What? Yeah, Moshe. Yeah.
Rabbi. So
Yeah.
what was the final outcome on the schnitzel, on the bracha?
What was the final What was the final thing on schnitzel? The bracha on schnitzel, the blessing on schnitzel.
Mm-hmm.
The blessing, I say shahakol, bar shahakol niya bevaro. That's what I say.
Right.
Rabbi Silverberg says hamotzi. Mizono.
Mezzano.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I say shahakol. That's what I was taught. That's what I keep with. Yeah. I actually like.
Can I ask you one quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So yesterday we were davening, and one of the guys brought in mangoes. He brought in mangoes, and so we took them. And of course, my son, he's smicha, and he's very to the point. And he was like, "I don't know if we can eat this because of the years of the tree. If it's over 3-4 years," and we looked it up, but it was kind of confusing. On the, I forgot the word that
Orla?
he says, orla.
Yeah, Orla.
So,
Oh, my connection is on. Sorry.
Isn't that only for Israeli
So-
produce?
no, that's what I thought, but it says no.
First of all,
Also
it's
everywhere.
not going to be. You cannot have a mango tree in the first 3 years. There's almost no tree that produces fruit ripe enough within 3 years. You can assume that it's totally fine, unless you know it comes from the land of Israel during a Shemitah year, which we're not in.
Right.
No, you can assume, it's safe to assume there's a chazaka. It's safe to assume that you can eat it. And it's only, am I wrong? Isn't Orla only in Eretz
Okay.
Yisrael?
Are you using one of these?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Orla's only in Eretz Yisrael.
Not sure if I should learn it before I go.
It's so we don't have to worry about it. If you're eating in America, you're fine. When the Romans came to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, what incentive they had to leave
Okay.
the Kotel standing? Oh, I think they just didn't. It's a good question. Well, the prophet says that the Western Wall will never be destroyed. What incentive? Why didn't they destroy it? I don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure. You know an answer? Yeah, whatever. I'm reading it. I'm reading the question. People are in wonderment. Who am I talking to? What's going on? Why didn't they destroy the Kaisel?
Well, they wanted the deal was that they should.
There's a big scholar here.
Great structure, they just succeeded in destroying.
Oh, so it was like a monument. They left it as a monument. That's one explanation. They wanted to leave it as like, oh, here's like Lahav, almost like when Hitler didn't want to destroy, he left Krakow. Krakow's perfectly intact. All the synagogues are there. It's incredible because Hitler wanted, Mach Shamo, erase his name, wanted to leave it as like a big museum. Like, oh, this is where the Jewish people used to live. This is what it used to look like if you were a Jew. 1 year later, they actually, when the Romans came to destroy the Holy Temple, they didn't completely destroy it. They didn't plow it down until 1 year later. Interesting enough. But anyway, that doesn't answer your question. The Kotel should always be there. Just very interesting. The Eicha talks about, when it talks about Tisha B'Av, it calls it a moed. a holiday, a moed, which is a holiday. We actually don't say tachanun on Tisha B'Av, which is a day usually, we're asking for forgiveness. We don't do that on Tisha B'Av. And the reason is it's a promise from God saying that you will come to appreciate this day. This day will turn into a day of sasan, v'simcha, joy, and gladness. You just don't see it now, but this is my promise to you. You will look back and you'll see how it really was a positive day. And that day will come, and it'll be, you'll celebrate on such a day. So it's called a moed, and we don't say tachanun, interestingly enough, even though it's the saddest day, and it's a day that is dedicated to our sins and everything wrong we did. God says, no, that's not today. No, it's going to change. And therefore, it's not a true destruction. Yeah, anything which is going to be reversed. There's a concept in Torah, God forbid somebody steals something, and they let's say they steal my phone, and they turn it into something else. But if they rearrange, I don't know, they take the hardware and they do other things. If I can rearrange it in a way that it comes back to being a functional phone, it was actually considered as if you didn't really steal it, and you can give it right back to me. You don't have to pay me double amount of money. You can just give me the phone back, because it's not a real change. You didn't actually change it. You only have to pay me double if you changed it. You made it in a way that I can never get it back, but I could get it back. Here, the temple, God is saying all this destruction, all this negativity is going to revert back. You're going to see how it was really joyful days and it wasn't real destruction, and therefore it's not a real destruction. Concept idea. Okay, I do need to go. I want to wish you guys all an easy fast. If I don't speak to you, hopefully I'll have a class tomorrow on halacha. Should be a Tanya class tonight and Rambam class tonight. Signing off. Thank you all. See you guys.